Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mashion podcast. As you all know that we've been speaking about loss. Our theme for this podcast, all the episodes is loss. और हमने बहुत सारी चीज़ों पे बात की है. जब हम सोच रहे थे और जब मैं लिख रही थी कि क्या क्या चीज़ें हम डिस्कस कर सकते हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली सबसे पहले हमारे दिमाग में आता है लॉस ऑफ अ ह्यूमन बीइंग, यू नो, व्हेन यू लूज देम टू डेथ. Here, of course, maybe losing a partner or a friendship, a relationship. Then, of course, we talked about losing jobs, and sometimes people go through. A lot of people, especially nowadays, have gone through a huge financial crisis. लेकिन हम बहुत दफ़ा और बाज़ दफ़ा बच्चों के बारे में बात करना भूल जाते हैं. ये भूल जाते हैं कि जो चीज़ें हमने बचपन में गुजारी हैं, जिन चीज़ों का हमने सामना किया है, जो हमने अपने इर्द गिर्द देखी हैं, वो हमें कितनी ज़्यादा अफेक्ट करती हैं. वो ट्रॉमा हमारे अंदर हमेशा रहता है. और आज तक, आई मीन, आई एम 35 years old and I feel that there is so much inside of me which has come from my childhood. So today is a very, very special and important episode for several reasons, and one of them being that I have a very special guest with me. I respect her a lot. I am very, very grateful that she's here with us. Please welcome on the show, Ayesha Mian.
Thank you so much, Mahira. This is wonderful. Really happy to be on this show and really happy to hear you introduce it and talk about children in a way कि हम नहीं बात करते, हम अपने environment में बात नहीं करते, and we kind of think कि बच्चे जो हैं वो, they're these non-entities, इधर उधर घूम रहे हैं, कर रहे हैं, but they're not really, viable, thinking, feeling, talking people. And we completely miss that picture कि ये ही बड़े होके हम जैसे बनेंगे. These are the ones, and उनके साथ जो भी हो रहा है वो एब्जॉर्ब कर रहे हैं, देख रहे हैं, पिक कर रहे हैं.
In fact, they are the greatest sponges, right?
Absolutely. And हम जो कह रहे होते हैं, overtly उनको सिखा रहे होते हैं, वो तो शायद वो सीख रहे हैं, नहीं सीख रहे, लेकिन जो covertly हम सब कर रहे हैं, that's what they're picking up.
Absolutely. Before, I mean, I'm going to get into this little story, which I don't know अगर आपने ये सुनी है मुझसे पहले या मगर मैं आपको ज़रूर बताऊंगी. But I want to tell everybody who's listening at the moment that you actually specialize in child psychology, psychiatry. Is that right?
Right.
So that is your, you've specialized.
That is my work. So I am trained as an adult psychiatrist, and then I did additional 2-year training, and this was all in the US, in child and adolescent psychiatry.
Right.
And with that, that makes me a very, I think, prone to extinct kind of existence in Pakistan, because हम सिर्फ 7 हैं पूरे मुल्क में child and adolescent psychiatrists.
Really?
When I moved here in 2013, we were like 3 or 4, and then I started a training program. So now, we've trained 3 more. So now we've gotten to 7. But with about half of our population that's young, it's less than 24, it's
Absolutely.
the youth, right? 50% of our population. So we're looking at 100 million people under the age of 24. And about, to conservative figures that about, 20%, 30% of them need help. So we have 20 million children that need some sort of psychological, psychiatric help. I think that piece is important to talk about, but also my sense is that this kind of conversation जिसमें हम prevent करें, we're talking about what is it that we can do with these kids so that we don't add to those 20 million.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that is important to have.
So I was at this school. It was like I think it was a career, sort of fair or something where I had to speak to children about their careers and maybe guide them a little bit and stuff like that. वहाँ एक लड़की थी, Dr. Ayesha, वो मेरे पास आई. She was a bit jittery, and she came up to me and she said, she started talking to me. She said, I want to talk to you alone. I said, okay. And she said, I really want to just speak to you. Can I have your number? This, that. I said, what's wrong? What's the problem? She said, I'm not doing well, and I'm anxious, and I'm going through the... Anyway, she told me a lot about herself.
Right.
And she insisted that I give me your number. I said, look, I can't do that. Also because in that moment, I had to think of school. I'm standing in a school premises. She is probably she was like under 16, I'd say, maybe 16 years old.
Right.
And she's a young girl. She's not like a college-going girl. कि अम्मा अब्बा वो क्या कि मैंने उसको अपना नंबर दे दिया. I can't be in this. Anyway, I said, listen, you don't worry, it'll be fine, but you must go for therapy. And ये वो सब बात खत्म हो गई. When I came back, I felt really bad. I said, maybe I could have helped her, So what if she was asking for my number?
Right.
Anyway, gone, done. A month or 2 months later, I'm sitting and waiting for my turn with you.
Okay.
And it was my first time coming to you,
Right.
a while ago.
Right.
And I myself was very scared. And I see this girl, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, I know this girl.
Right.
And suddenly I'm like, oh my God.
It's that girl?
Yes. And she comes and sits next to me. I called her, and she sat next to me. And here I was, a woman in my 30s. Here this girl was in her teens. And it almost felt like, I don't know, just like God's way or whatever it may be, that she sat there. I was thinking, my God, look at me. I've come down to this, I'm sitting here and waiting for my turn. Everyone is looking at me.
Yeah.
And here she was, scared, but she was looking at this woman who she probably looked up to.
Yeah.
And at least thinking, oh, we're in the same boat, so it's okay.
Right.
And we literally, it was, बस ये नहीं हुआ था कि हमने हाथ नहीं पकड़े थे. वरना we were just sitting with each other.
Right.
And, I would have bawled if it wasn't for me wanting to be a little strong for her. But
Sure.
So that was my first time at your, I think I didn't tell you that, but it was just something that really affected me. कि यार, I need to actually talk about these things because there are people who are looking and I can give them strength.
And it's very possible that because you spoke to her at school and said to her, I know this girl now that you're talking to me, because every time she comes, she's like, when is Mahira going to come? I need to be on the same day, the same clinic.
Oh.
But she, maybe that gave her that strength that it is okay to go see someone. It is okay to talk about, what you're going through, and
And it gave her mother strength, Dr. Ayesha, because I think we're talking about the same person, but hota ye, and this is what I want for you to talk about as well, maybe later on, but parents. So coming back to children, take me through a child, their psychology as they're growing up, and what all can affect them. And I know there's a multitude of things, but I want you to sort of take us through it in the most...
So, the bachcho ki development and how they think, how they feel, what they're going to become starts all the way from conception. So when I am asking parents, जब मेरे पास पहली दफ़ा बच्चे आते हैं, I'm taking a history, I ask them, what was your pregnancy like? Was it a wanted pregnancy, or was it a sudden pregnancy that you didn't want, and you're like, oh my God, how are we going to manage this?
Okay.
So that, and then, what kind of stress have you gone through, during pregnancy? So, वो पुराने ज़माने में सब माएँ, दादियाँ, चाचियाँ और नानियाँ बोलती थीं कि pregnant woman को जो है खुश रखो, उसके आसपास प्यारी प्यारे बच्चों की तस्वीरें होनी चाहिए. There was a lot of wisdom to that. Because stress during pregnancy is the biggest indicator that a child who's going to be born is going to be vulnerable to loss, to anxiety, to depression, and all those things. And in our cases, Mahira, it's been very interesting to me in Pakistan. What I've been seeing is that a lot of my patients with ADHD, anxiety, and depression tend to be firstborns. And I'm trying to, make that connection. And what happens is that, this is a woman who's just gotten married. First year is always a very, very tough year. Then, of course, एक नए ससुराल में और नए घर में जाती हैं, वहाँ now her status is that of a bahu, which is like, you're trespassing into my son's life,
anxious,
and
whatever,
and you're anxious, and other people are also, so that pregnancy is hard for them. And then suddenly they have their first child and their status gets elevated to ab ye mere bacche ki maa hai ya mere pote ki maa hai. So then the further pregnancies tend to be better for her because now she has a better standing. So how are we treating the mother? How are those parents talking to each other is so important, because everything that she's feeling during that pregnancy is that, that bacha is psychologically, I won't go into the neurobiology, but there's an HPA sort of axis that's been formed that is going to make you vulnerable to, anxiety later on and depression later on.
So what you're saying is that जब हम कंसीव करते हैं
Right.
तब से आप अपने बच्चे को साइकोलॉजिकली अफेक्ट करते हैं, गुड बैड व्हाटएवर इट,
You know, because अब physically तो हम सब कहते हैं ना, इस तरह बैठो, इस तरह करो, ये खाओ, वो खाओ, पंजीरी खाओ, ये करो, वो करो, because physical बच्चा अच्छा growth होगा, but we are not thinking psychologically, we're not thinking how much stress is this mother going through, and that is affecting the fetus. So it starts from that time. And then of course as the child is born, you know, three things that the child goes through कि उसको उस वक्त ज़रूरत है सोने की, and then you know feeding की, and then you need to change their diaper, because you know those three things, and are they being catered to right at that time? So if a mother with postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or whatever else is going on in the house is not being able to take care of that child's needs, that is affecting the child. So you know, before in the 50s and 40s लोग कहते थे बच्चों को तो कोई डिप्रेशन नहीं होता, 2 साल से कम बच्चों को क्या पता चलेगा. But you know, there were lots of studies that were done in orphanages, and they found that little babies, the orphans, did have depression. And how do they manifest it? By failure to thrive. So they don't meet milestones. And then they gave them surrogate mothers, and suddenly they're growing
just
fine.
growing fine.
You know, they're doing well and
So
stuff.
tell me something, because it's very interesting to me. I've actually, I mean, I feel that I've studied so much of psychology and I've read everything and whatever.
Yeah.
And that I'm observant and I can tell and blah.
Right.
But you know, so there was this one night, I was lying down in bed and I was crying. In my head, मैं बहुत चुप करके रो रही थी.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Not, I wasn't bawling. I was
Right.
just crying, you know.
Yeah.
And I was being very quiet about it. Aslan was like a little baby sleeping right next to me.
Right.
You won't believe this.
He picked it up.
You won't believe, and maybe no one will believe this when I say this. That's the day I knew that every little thing of mine, even if it's just energy, affects him. I suddenly started, he was sleeping and I started, I was like, oh my God. You know?
Yeah.
So
they pick it up. They pick it up. They pick it up from the very, very beginning. So it's so important to understand. Now, you can't be happy and
All the time.
you know, wonderful and great and
Absolutely.
everything all the time. So that's not the point. I think the point is that being very mindful that whatever I'm doing is affecting the baby, so that you're balancing it and you're picking it up. And if you're reflecting on it and you're mindful about it, then you're going to do it less in front of the kid, or you know, you'll be kind of vigilant about it, that I need to be careful. But that you know, I tell parents, even with, you know, as the kids grow older, that हमें लगता है सिर्फ हम बच्चों का ख्याल रख रहे हैं. But the kids are taking care of us all the time. You know, should I tell this to mom? Should I tell this to baba? You know, वैसे उनको ये bother होता है, ये होता है. Let me just hide it. वो और परेशान हो जाएंगे. A lot of the times when they are hiding their results or whatever, it's not because, well, they might also be scared कि डांट पड़ेगी stuff. But they're also worried.
They don't want to disappoint.
Yeah,
You
they
see, that
disappoint
whole
you.
Thing of a parent
Absolutely.
and child, it's such
Absolutely.
a strange dynamic, right? It's just the strangest dynamic. But what I feel is, and I always try to tell myself this, that बिल्कुल हम लोग जैसे आप सही कह रही हैं कि हम वालिदैन अपने बच्चों को कहते तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं. All of us want the best for our child. So we tell them, you know, be honest, work hard, ये वो. But जैसे आपने कहा कि हम करते क्या
क्या है, बिल्कुल.
क्योंकि जब आपका बच्चा देखेगा कि आप, जैसे मेरी एक्स सास हमेशा मुझे कहती थी, देखो बच्चा सब कुछ देखता है, तुम एंग्शियस होगी, बच्चा एंग्शियस होगा, तुम you know, so whatever you don't want him to be, that's up to you. You want him to be, you know, anxious,
that's
fine. You want him to be someone who's constantly, that's also fine. You just make your, so that's, but it's a hard task.
It is.
Because
it is. But also, you know, you don't, again, you know, I tell parents, this is the other thing that I tell, and I think if अगर कोई भी सुन रहा है वो इस पूरे कॉन्वर्सेशन से सिर्फ एक ये चीज़ पिक कर ले, that good enough is really good enough. You don't need to be perfect. There's something called good enough parenting, and it's been written about. There's a lot of evidence around it, and that is good enough. So you don't need to now become anxious कि मुझे helicopter mom बन के और मुझे perfect mom बन के, you know, I can't like even breathe because बच्चों को क्या हो जाएगा. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
As long as you're a good enough parent, and there's a lot of smiles and a lot of laughter and a few tears and डांटना करना, everything together, that's perfectly okay.
Would you say that then the key to maybe, in a way, good parenting, and I honestly do not think that any of us have a sort of, we all are just at the end of the day trying, right?
Of
Because
course.
they gave birth to us as a mother as well. So I'm
course.
as old as Aslan in a way,
Right.
right? As a mother.
Yeah.
But do you feel that awareness and observation with children goes a long way? Because, yeah?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, again, I'm speaking out of experience. I see how me and my brother are, different yet very similar.
Right.
But I also see Aslan and all the kids in his class, or the boys, they're all very different. Some are susceptible to bullying,
Right.
some are absolutely not. And these are, I know, personalities. But this really affects children. I got affected by bullying. My child has been affected by bullying. And I want you to talk about bullying.
Right. So, one of my favorite topics, because, and very quickly, I'll tell you
Probably
that
the
it is
most
like
important thing we can
thing.
talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, we did this small, tiny study at AKU. We said कि जो भी बच्चे आ रहे हैं pediatrics office में, हम clinic में, हम उनको पूछेंगे कि have you been, affected by bullying? And 92% said yes. 92%. Like, that's huge. That's a huge number.
That's nearly
right?
100%.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
everybody.
That's like everybody.
Right.
And there's this whole thing, it's a rite of passage. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing, which I think is, I want to use a very bad word.
It's
that's
bullshit.
BS. It's completely
I'll use
bullshit.
the bad word.
Good.
I'll
so
use
it's
the bad word.
completely, it's messed up because that's not true. So yes, there might be kids that might just go through it, but how people respond to bullying is by either becoming a bully themselves.
Exactly.
They're
Or-
or they will take part in sort of, or they'll be the bystander
Or
and
it
getting
kills
affected.
your self-esteem
Or it
completely.
completely kills your self-esteem, right? It completely kills it. And then any child who's a little bit different, आवाज उसकी soft hai, or they're gentle, boys who are gentle and sweet, the kind of boys that we would need in this world, they're going to be bullied more. A girl who's a little tall for her age, or, is a little bit more assertive, is going to be bullied more. So it affects everyone. And what you are actually saying is that the kid who's bullying is the stronger, because it's all about power imbalance, right?
It is, absolutely.
So
it's a
like
power
just-
show
yeah.
since you're children.
Completely. So there's just three things that you need for bullying. Is like there's a power imbalance, that it needs to be, that it's pervasive, and that the other person has said, stop, this bothers me. And uske bawajood agar continue rehta hai wo behavior, then that's bullying, right?
ठीक
So
है.
that's
ठीक है.
those three things that need to be there. And that is why it's so important to pick this up very quickly, because what you're then saying is that the bully, the one who's getting all of the spectators and stuff, is the way to be in this world.
Absolutely.
Rather than that nice kid, the gentle kid, the kid who shares, the kid who has a sweet voice, the kid, that's what we need to celebrate. So when bullying बहुत prevalent है, zero bullying policy हर एक ने रख ली है, कोई follow नहीं करता है, कुछ, none of that happens. And also anti-bullying programs all over the world have not worked. They don't work, right?
Why?
They don't work because what we are saying is bullying is wrong all the time, but we are not telling them that what is right? We're not giving them a replacement behavior. So aggression is one of the things that is a natural drive in humans, right? Freud talked about
Right.
it a
Some
very
have it
long time.
more,
It's
some
like-
have it a little
So
less,
aggression
right.
तो होता है, right? And then अगर आपने उसको attention दे दी, चाहे वो negative ही attention क्यों ना हो, तो then that behavior will continue.
Okay.
Right.
So I hope that the people who are listening at the moment or watching, that's a very good point, something I didn't know before, कि अगर aggression, पहली बात ये तो aggression एक natural चीज़ है जो होती है सब
Right.
बच्चों में होती है, बड़ों में होती है, हम सब में होती है. मगर जब आप उसको अटेंशन देते हैं, चाहे वो नेगेटिव ही क्यों ना हो, मतलब डांट डपट ही क्यों ना हो, राइट?
है या सजा दे दी, बाहर
सजा
क्लास
दे
में
दी.
कर दिया, but then the guy is like recess में, oh dude, look, nothing mattered to me and I didn't have to study geography because they kicked me out, so great, right? So that doesn't go away. So what actually works is schools that implement compassion programs, schools that integrate kindness and gentleness and stuff, or usko celebrate karte hain. So rather than focusing on the behavior that's bad one, we're going to every day, end of the day, the one kid who was the nicest, kindness,
right.
whatever, that kid is going to get celebrated.
Right.
That kid is going to get like a star or whatever. So that helps, because suddenly you're like, oh, इसको attention मिल रही है, इसको सब अच्छा कह रहे हैं, इसका नाम बोर्ड पे आ गया, इसकी तस्वीर आ गई, I want to do this.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's what needs to happen more, that you need to, like, pro-compassionate behaviors that need to be inculcated and
Right.
integrated and celebrated a
So
lot more.
tell me then, once a child has gone through the bullying,
Right.
okay, and coming back to what we have been talking about all this while with in all the other episodes, loss. I don't want to get too personal, पता चले later on as laughing, Mama,
Why did you
I
do
watched
that?
that, okay, why did you do
Right.
that? But I'll talk
Right.
about myself, okay?
Yeah.
I've been through a time when I was little, and I, went through bullying. And what happens is a lot of times is that, there becomes these groups, right? And then sometimes you're part of the group and sometimes you're not. And there are times where you're completely taken out of the group.
Right.
And honestly, I can think of many, many things that have happened to me in my life as an adult, but I don't forget. That's something that has stayed with me, and I became the opposite of sort of a bully. I became sort of more like, oh my God, also scared a little bit. I'm a little bit scared, so I do not like confrontation, right? So this probably trickles down from there.
Sure.
What do you do with a child who is now going through it?
Yeah.
And who's gone through it, who feels like, I hate this word, a loser, who feels like an outcast.
Right.
What do you do? What is the way to...
So, and I'll tell you a little story about my kids. My kids have a very hard time because मैं हर जगह जाके उनकी कहानियाँ सुनाती हूँ और वो बहुत upset होते हैं. And then when they sit through some of my parenting programs, they're like, yeah, right, we know what you do at home, Mama.
Right, yeah, of course,
So
of
there's
course,
also
yeah.
that piece. But when my daughter was little, she's always liked her clothes and stuff and everything. And she kept crying one of these days because I thought I got her these nicest Gap ki koi jeans thing with these flowers, bell-bottom flowers at the bottom. And she's like, you don't understand, do you? Skinny jeans are in fashion, and my friends have told me that they will not, this is kindergarten, they will not sit with me because you make me wear these bell-bottom kind of things jo koi nahi pehanta hai. And I realized at that time that, in my head, because, I went through this when my mom was like, turtleneck bhi pehenna, ye bhi pehenna, and you cried and you did whatever,
But
and they're like, no, you had
Yeah.
to do it, right? And I'm like, okay, but these are the tiny things that bother kids, right? Because again, and girls jo hai wo ostracize karti hain, that's the way they bully,
Yeah.
this whole mean girls kind of a thing. And it really affects
Yes.
your, tiny things that parents can do to kind of, pick up and say, okay, if this is so important to my child, then, what difference does it make?
Right.
Okay, let her wear her skinny jeans kind of thing.
Right.
Now, what do we do with kids that have gone through this? So one of the things that I found very effective is empowering the child who's been bullied.
Okay.
And what do we do with that? How do we do that? Is that one, they need to understand bullying. So again, like any other health disorder, अगर किसी को diabetes होता है, say learn about diabetes, learn about your disease, right? So there are lots of very nice bullying websites, and I'm like, go to this bullying website and read about it. Read about the kids. Sorry. Read about the kids जो bully करते हैं, because that also takes away the fizz and the actual, because they also have issues. There's a reason why they're bullying,
absolutely,
right? उनके घर पे parents के कोई issues हैं या जो कुछ भी हैं, उनके भी self esteem के issues हैं. So that takes away that strength कि bully को तो सब कुछ, he's got everything and he's the stronger person. So read about that, and then once they've read about who bullies, who gets bullied, what how does it affect everyone, then I tell them, talk about it in class, become the expert on bullying. Okay, do a little 5-minute presentation, make a little poster, because now suddenly you know it all. So you're the guy or the girl who they can't mess up because who knows it. So you've got the strength, and that is very, very helpful.
Right.
So we'll do our therapy, we'll do the play therapy, agar chote hain, we'll do the other counseling, agar bade hain. So all of that goes along with it. We talk to parents, we tell them to become advocates, we talk to the teachers. So all of that happens. But और हमारे पेरेंट्स के साथ भी मसला है ना कि नहीं स्कूल में नहीं बताना, बिकॉज फिर टीचर्स वो अपसेट हो जाएंगी कि आप हमारी बात प्रिंसिपल को क्यों बता दिया, ये क्यों कर दिया, वो कर दिया. एंड आई फील लाइक दैट इज ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू empower them as well. That no, this is your child, you need to advocate at the school and tell them that this is going on. But when the child knows what is happening, then it is very helpful for them to then make choices and decide कि अब हमें आगे क्या करना है?
Right.
How
right.
do we manage
You're very
this?
right, actually. Aslan one day when he was being bullied came back home, and
Right.
I was
Yeah.
I was angry.
Right.
As much as I want to be,
Sure.
there comes a point where you, as a mother, you just want to go and say,
Of course.
"Who did it?"
Of course. Yeah.
So I said to Aslan, I sat him down. I was like, "Okay, listen, man. It's been a while now. Okay,
Right,
you
right.
got to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
You got to get up and stand up for yourself." He's like, "Yeah, I do, but Mom, I'm not." Because,
Yeah.
and he's very at peace with who he is. He's like, "I'm an artist."
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He says that to me.
Yeah.
I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. But he said, Mama, I wish I could bully them with my mind, with my knowledge.
Right. Right.
I was like, wait a
great.
second, that's actually really clever.
Yeah.
I said, okay, then. And then I realized what he was trying to tell me. And I was like, maybe he knows better than me. Maybe right now he's figured out a way that I can't figure out because my emotions are running high,
Yeah.
Did it affect him? Of course it did. It affected everybody around us,
Of course.
But this idea of like, he was like, you know what, I don't need them.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
he figured a way out.
A way out.
Probably has affected him in some
Sure.
way, but
Right.
but
And a little bit of that is, and you,
Also-
and it's good for parents to also figure that thing out, because कुछ चीजें बच्चे अपने तौर से सीखते हैं, जिसको हम playground politics कहते हैं, that what are they learning on the playground, and how are they learning how to be with each other, how to be with the teacher, how to be with that 8th grader, if I'm a 4th grader, how to be with the little ones. So they get that, they pick those things up. But if you feel that the day-to-day, and this is all that mental health is about, right? All of us get anxious, all of us get depressed, all of us get angry and stuff. But when it starts to affect our day-to-day functioning, so similarly, अगर बच्चे की day-to-day functioning affect हो रही है, स्कूल जाने से मना कर रहा है, रोजाना पेट में दर्द हो रहा है कि नहीं आज मैं स्कूल नहीं जा सकता, नहीं कर सकता, right? Grades affect हो रहे हैं, decline हो गए हैं पहले से जो भी थे. So if those things start to happen, then yes, there's something amiss, and we need to figure this out.
Now, another question, and I feel like this is great for me because I can get so much out of you for myself
Sure.
as well. And I'm so happy that we're doing this. I hope there are many people listening to this. Tell me when a child, this is something about parenting I'm going to ask you.
Right.
There are two parents. They think differently, whatever.
Right.
There are some parents who say honesty is like the best thing you can do with a child, right? So people going through divorce, people going through whatever loss it may be, whatever it may be, it could be divorce, it could be losing a parent or a sibling or whatever.
Sure.
There was a very long chunk where I kept thinking, no, there is a time to tell your child everything. There's a time for his brain to absorb it.
Sure.
On the other hand, maybe there's another opinion which is no. Whether he's 3, 4, 5, he should sort of know.
Right.
What do you do? What is the best sort
So
of
the
way
simple answer to that is you have to tell the child the truth. Okay, so that's the simple answer. Now, there's a caveat to that how much do you tell, or how do you tell the child based on their developmental level?
Right.
So if you're getting divorced and the child is 3 years old, you have to tell him that, Mama and Baba will not be able to live together again, they are, but they still love you, and you are the most important person in their lives, and nothing will affect you. But then when that kid is 6, then you can tell them a little bit more that this is what happened. Baba thought a little bit differently, and and yes, we were good friends, and at that time, we were in love, but life happens. And then when they're teenagers, so you kind of, and this could be for anything, like if the child is adopted, that happens all the time. A child is adopted and parents don't tell them, and वो 14-15 साल के होते हैं, फिर उनको किसी इधर उधर से पता चलता है, गली से किसी से पता चलता है, या किसी and they are broken completely. And I'm like, don't do that. And there are all these books about I am adopted for 3-year-olds, for 4-year-olds. So you can use all of them. So थोड़े उनके developmental stage के level पे you start telling them. You do it with love, you do it with kindness. And I also tell parents, just recently I've had some mothers who've gone through difficult husband-wife related issues, or they found husband cheated, whatever it might be. And they said, my kids found me crying, or my kids, or even when you lose a parent, right? And mothers or fathers are like, we don't want to cry in front of them, or we don't. And I'm like, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Please do cry. It's okay. It's okay for them to see you that this has affected you, because it also gives them the permission to
cry. Absolutely.
Right? And tell you what is going on with them. Of course, don't overwhelm them. Don't tell them everything. Don't be angry and belligerent and say, I hate your dad and he can go to hell and whatever it might be. But talk about your loss so that they can learn to talk about their loss, and process your loss with them so that they can learn to process their loss, right? Because they're going to have lots of losses. I mean, this is the world. Look at this world. It's
life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that will, and they need to learn all of that. And again, अगर parents भी जैसे आपस में एक disagreement होता है, थोड़ा सा झगड़ा होता है, and I'm like, let the kids see a little bit of it. Not when, if you're of course hitting each other or being violent, but a little bit of it. Sure, let them see it, and then let them see you come to an agreement. Let them see you make up. Let them see you hug or hold hands or say, I was sorry, and I was whatever. Because then they will learn how to
also resolve
their
and
issues.
Understand that there will be issues, but we can resolve it or whatever.
And people can have different thoughts, but then come together and still love each other and still be together with each other.
So tell me, what about older children? Now we're talking about teenage years, and even like older than that. There are those specific moments, very textbook moments, where you feel like ages where you go through this. It's the teenage, and then when you're about to go to college, or when you're in college, stuff like that, where things are changing. Suddenly you're out of your comfort zone. Suddenly the expectations have changed. Suddenly you have to prove to the world almost that you're going to make it in life, or whatever it may be. That's really tough. Like, I wish that there was, I wish I'd gone for therapy. I still don't go for therapy, actually. Which is terrible.
All of us could use it, because we all go through difficult times. So one of the, before we go to the older kids, like the older teenagers, one of the age group that is very vulnerable that we don't talk about much is the middle school.
The preteen,
the puberty, where it starts to happen. And suddenly your body is changing, and suddenly you're feeling things in your body. And for boys, they might be, having wet dreams. And then, for girls, they're like, okay, I'm feeling these strange sensations, or, my breasts are sprouting up, or I'm getting hair and all sorts of odd things. All sorts of, and then menstruation might start. It's very scary. It's very, very scary. And हमारा तो पूरा culture lives on guilt, right? So
guilt and shame.
Guilt, completely guilt and shame. Chupana hai, right? If you're feeling like you're masturbating, chupana. If you're feeling you're doing this, chupana. If you're having menstruation, chupana hai. Store se apne, you got to buy pads, chupana hai. It's like all sorts of, and so children have a very hard time processing guilt, right? And if they are feeling certain feelings, certain sexual sensations, certain, things, changes in their body, they start feeling very, very guilty about it, because they can't talk to anyone.
And no one's there to tell them that you can't be guilty about something that is natural.
That is absolutely natural.
That everybody your age is going through.
Exactly. So that I feel, and then the way they deal with it, a lot of these kids will get either eating disorders or eating kind of, changes, or obsessive compulsive disorders. Because जब आप किसी भी चीज़ को अपनी ज़िंदगी में कंट्रोल करते हैं ना, out, because अंदर कंट्रोल नहीं है, so I'm going to control my portion. Right? Under control नहीं, so I'm going to control that my hands are washed 5 times a day. या फिर मैं नमाज ज़्यादा पढ़ना शुरू कर दूंगी, या मैं like Quran, I'm going to start reciting the Quran, or I'm going to,
it's almost like taking control, is it?
It's like, okay. So inside का जो भी conflict है, now you are externally controlling things, right? It has to be clean, it has to be safe, it has to be washed a certain time, it has to be touched a certain time, because then that takes care of their anxiety. And then suddenly you see these eating disorders, and you start seeing these, there is anorexia and there's bulimia and all of these things. And I really feel that's very hard. It's that stage and age is very hard. And as your body is changing, you're also more prone to bullying. Because you'll have boys who are, you've started wearing a bra, so लड़कियों के पीछे से जाके bra खींच देंगे, या boys एक दूसरे पे हंसेंगे, however it might be. So that is a very hard time, and I think it's so important for us to do sex ed because we don't do that. We don't do education about changing the body and sexual
I wish,
needs and stuff.
I mean, the best of schools don't have
They
it.
don't. They don't. Absolutely.
Um,
And what's very interesting is one of my very good friends, Sabrina Daud, who takes care of this Daud public school.
Yes.
So it's a girls' school.
Okay.
And she said, I'm going to teach them about this. And sare ke sare, fundamental groups and stuff ne aake dharna de diya uske,
No
school
way.
ke aage. So she had to actually go into hiding for a little bit because she got, and this is an all-girls school. And I'm like, this is unbelievable that this is. So it's that piece is hard, but I think it's important. I think it's so important to tell these kids and normalize these behaviors, and for us as parents to talk to them and tell them that
that's
this
where
will
Aslan
happen.
is at the moment, and I can see it. I can see
Absolutely.
the little. It is.
So it's an interesting time, and I think it's important for us to address it. And then as they grow older, parents हमेशा के I feel so sorry for you. आप teenagers, आपके बच्चे teenagers हो गए हैं, वो गए हैं. You must be having a very hard time. And I'm like, no, they're having a hard time, those bicharas, right?
That's true.
It's a hard time because again, and वो हमसे बात करनी छोड़ दी है. We can't do anything right for them. And I'm like, but that's how it should be. If you're still their role models, if they're still just coming to you, then that's arrested
They don't have-
development.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they need to, because they're now trying to find their place in life. They're trying to find मुझे ये actress अच्छी लगती है, मुझे ये musician अच्छा लगता है, मुझे ये football player अच्छा लगता है.
They're finding themselves. Like they're just.
How do I want to dress up? How do I want to walk? How do I want to eat? Who do I want to emulate? They're liking their teachers or their mentors and whoever that their football coaches.
Yeah.
And that's normal and that's healthy. They
Right.
should go out. They should have a lot of attachments with people beyond parents. It's important. You're like 9th or 10th on their list of important people, and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
You'll always be their parents, and I'm like, just all you have to do is to be there for them when they want you and when they need you.
Yeah.
Because होता ये है कि अच्छा उस वक्त तो हमारे पास नहीं आए थे, अब problem फंस गए हो, ये हो गया वो गया, now you're like coming to me. Don't say that to them.
Right, because
Right?
that's why you're there. And also
Yeah.
just a little bit of awareness, I feel. I always feel, and I always tell myself, one must always be aware. With around children, right?
Absolutely.
Like, even when I was like, Mama, go out of the room, I want to talk to my friend. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I kind of, because it's that age, I'm like, kind of like, gotta be aware. I
Yes.
can't completely,
No.
because I know I've been there, we've all been there, right?
Of course.
But yes, I cannot, there's something
So
I
you
can't.
have to be the parent.
You have to be the
that's
parent.
like, and they say this all the time that do I want to like be their friend or do I want to just disappear? I'm like, no.
They'll
you
have their
to be
friends.
that. Yeah, friends उनके हैं, आप उनके दोस्त नहीं हैं, आप
Right.
उनके parent हैं.
Right.
Stay parents. I guess that generation is very different. Like my mom, Ammi will always tell me कि you are not strict with your children and you
Yeah.
will realize what will happen to them because ये ठीक नहीं है. जो उनके दिल में आता है तुम करने देती हो. And I'm like, आपने इतना strict होके सब कुछ किया तो क्या फर्क पड़ा, right? It's okay. But and maybe we react. So she was so strict, so I'm like super
Actually, we
like,
do react.
chill. So I think
That's what
so we
it
do
is.
the opposite, and
Yeah.
maybe it's like a whole generational shift जो आता है, and our kids will be different with their kids. But I think that generation still has it because she does the same with my daughter.
Yeah.
She's still like, you need to क्या कर रही हो, कहाँ जा रही हो, किस तरह, and the questions that I never ever ask.
Yeah.
Part of me is like some things I don't want to know because I don't
I
want
don't
to
want
start
to.
feeling
Absolutely.
anxious or whatever. Like there
Right.
should be some things that she
Absolutely.
should just do on her own without
Yes.
me getting to know about it.
Absolutely.
But yes, you don't want to be that parent who's helicopter, who's super sneaky and checking everything and stuff, because again, you're arresting your child's
Yes,
development.
yes.
Right? So some kids like you are going to be super creative and कहीं ना कहीं जगह ढूंढ लेंगे और अगर सामने नहीं लिख दे रहे तो बेड के नीचे लिखेंगे.
But the other thing she did do, and which both our parents did do, which me and Hassan talk about all the time, we're like, highly dysfunctional, but they just let us be.
Yeah.
Never in our house, by the way, never ever,
Really?
was there a topic of log kya kahenge.
Ah,
Never. I have
nice.
never heard my mother
Nice.
or father talk about other people.
That's amazing.
Never. No matter what we did. no matter what happened.
Right.
So today I realized I don't know, just it's a really good thing to do for your children. You know, we were free of people.
Yeah.
We were not free of judgment from our parents,
Right.
but we were free of that
Right.
ridiculous societal judgment which is ingrained in people's minds.
And we do a lot here. I mean, that is just abhi tak, like, you know, Pakistani culture, South Asian culture, not just Pakistani, Indian, South. I think it's
Right.
all about others. Right?
Yes.
It's all about, you know, this is what that person will say, this is what,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
you need to, is tarah aapne table lagana, is tarah, because wo kya sochenge, wo kya karenge. So it really is about that.
Or
And that's a very freeing thought that your
Yes.
parents didn't say that, because it really shackles you, you know. So I grew up, I was the firstborn.
Me too.
You know, and then I was always the nerdy kind of coming first in class and
Yeah.
whatever. So I couldn't do anything. And then I was also the first person to actually go into higher education, because both sides of the
Alright,
families
okay.
kind of, you know, got married early
Right.
and stuff. So there was always like, don't mess up, because everybody's watching you. Don't mess up. And it's crazy, because, you know, even when I went to the US and got married and my husband couldn't care less of, you know, whatever I did,
You
it was
never-
internal.
Me
right?
too.
Okay,
But at
बस
some
हो रहा है,
time
right?
you clicked though.
So
Did
so
it
for
happen
me,
to
at
you?
the age of, like, it probably came late, but at the age of 40, I'm like, I don't give a shit. You
Yes,
know, it's like
yes.
now it's like this is good. I don't care. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. You know, things can. But it sometimes takes you all this time to get to a place where you really feel free inside and
Yes.
just do what makes you happy.
So,
Right.
so certainly they were when I'm thinking about it now, that
Right.
I was also 30 when I was just like enough.
Enough, yeah.
Okay, I'm still very I'm still very like how you must be like, I have to take care of this and this and this and this, because
Yeah.
firstborn and all
You
this,
have to.
like, you have to do this, you have to do.
Yeah.
But somewhere you just say enough. And I think that's something that you shouldn't. So my this friend of mine, Kuchu, he said, you know, darling, there's one thing you must not do with your
Right.
child. I said, what? And he said, we give our children mantles, we give our children badges. We say things like, ये मेरी अच्छी वाली बच्ची है,
I know.
ये मेरा गुस्सा वाला बच्चा है,
Right.
ओ भाई ये जो है ना, ये मेरी पढ़ाकू बच्ची है. What we do is, we're being kind in our, you know, but we're giving them these badges, these mantles, these crowns, these, you know, and then what happens is they unconsciously live up to that. आप तो बड़े उससे कह रहे हैं
Yeah, yeah.
कि फनी भी हो रहे हैं, आप प्यार से भी कह रहे हैं कि ये तो मेरी, you know, so that's what happens. ये मेरी responsible वाली औलाद है.
Right.
And then,
And that's a very, very wise
है ना,
thing to say,
it's a
because I
never
mean,
give.
it's, you know, I've always tell people, and you know, one of the slides that I have is like, you know, ganda bacha, acha bacha. I'm like, stop, and I put a big red cross. You know, never, ever, ever say that, because what does that even mean? You know what, padhaku or whatever, whatever that you say, responsible and this and that and everything, because. One, you know, I don't then, you know, I'm, again, as you said, living up to those expectations. And then constantly, even when the parents are not there, I'm constantly just
Living-
feeling, right? I'm constantly
yeah.
feeling, oh my God, I didn't do this.
Yes.
You know, now I'm not responsible enough.
Yes.
Oh my, you know, I didn't do this. Ab main gandi bachi ho gayi. Ab main ye ho
Yes.
gayi. And
Yes.
it's very, very hard for, and again, you know, we're talking about loss. We're talking about, these are things that these are losses.
These are
These are
losses.
losses from your self-esteem, from your personality, from your temperament.
Absolutely.
That you spend then a lifetime trying to, you know, take care of and trying to get over. And think of all that potential. अगर एनर्जी इधर नहीं जाती तो हम और क्या कर सकते, बच्चे और क्या कुछ नहीं कर
बिल्कुल,
सकते.
बिल्कुल,
But we bind them with all of these labels and with all of these ideas. And हमारे schools and education system is very much like that.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
I'm sorry,
it's
but I
really-
find it.
you know, if I can do anything, I mean, my whole thing is कि how can I fix this whole O level, A level, you know, metric, whatever. It's all about आप first आए, second आए, third आए, कितने grades आए, class में, उसके बाद फिर आप tuition जाएंगे, फिर आप यहाँ जाएंगे, फिर, you know, we're हमारा जो भी हम सोसाइटी में वो कर रहे हैं, हमने बच्चों को भी उसका एक्सटेंशन बना दिया है ना कि, you know,
We're general.
are just like,
We're picking up a whole bunch of kids and saying we're generalizing all of you.
Right.
We don't care if one of you is a scientist or an artist.
yeah.
You're just all going to be put in the same pool
Absolutely.
and measured as in the
in the
same way, which is ridiculous.
Absolutely. And then we're not allowing, again, our kids, one of the things that we do all over globally, all over the place, जब बच्चों को हम देखते हैं, is make them do, especially the ones, 12 years and younger, ask them to do a house, tree, person drawing. A house, a tree, a person.
Okay.
And there's a whole science and art to it, कि
Okay.
वो क्या बना रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, दरख्त में फल है, नहीं है,
अच्छा,
घर में
okay.
लोग हैं, नहीं है, and then person, कौन सा person बना रहे हैं, किसको बनाते हैं, अपने आप को, this, so that's, our kids can't draw a freaking house, tree, person because we don't let them draw. All we are focused in कि writing A, B, C line के अंदर बस करते जाओ, लिखते जाओ, साफ सुथरी हैंड राइटिंग करो, कलरिंग करनी है तो लकीर से बाहर नहीं निकलेगा, उससे बाहर निकल गया तो आप लोग के मार्क्स कट जाएंगे, whatever. They really don't know how to draw or how to write a poem or write a story that is not my favorite pet or my, my father or my best day in school. If I were to ask somebody, okay, write about, what animal would you want to be, they'll freak out because they need to use their imagination.
Why are we not?
Because we are just so focused on, I guess, colonialism है, जो भी है, math पढ़ना है, science पढ़ना है, these things where you will get your degree and you will get that kind of creativity. अगर तुम writer बन जाओगे और अगर तुम्हारी किताबें नहीं बिकी तो क्या होगा, अगर तुम musician बन जाओगे और तुम, people don't like your music, so you will not have, so, engineer बनो, अब थोड़ा, बढ़ गया है तो okay, IBA चले जाओ, but creativity is just not fine arts and stuff. It's just completely throttled.
Yeah.
And even in our schools, we are told how to think, we are told what to write, we are told how to answer. My kids, we were in the US for a long time, so my older one had a very hard time coming back here and writing his literature ke answers because he's like, I only get marks when I put quotations जो मैंने रटे हुए हैं उधर से, मेरे जितने ज़्यादा quotations होंगे जो मैंने याद किए हैं तो उतने मुझे वो मिलेंगे. And I'm like, he's like, what's the point? And if I start analyzing a character and stuff, तो वो काट देते हैं कि O level में आपको फिर you won't get your A with it.
Which is not true. Anybody who's listening, O levels, A level students, I keep telling Aslan this because he loves writing and he enjoys compositions a lot.
Right.
So he said something, we're talking about different things, and I said, Aslan, when I was giving my O levels, I had a few, they give you a few topics to write on. You choose one, right?
Yeah.
So the top topic that I chose was ideas. And he's like, wow, Mama, what did you write? Yeah. I said, I'll tell you what I wrote, but I thought I'm going to fail this one, right?
Right.
Okay. And I said, I started off the essay with, I had a great idea this morning. I thought, what if I don't go for my O-level exam? I was like, that's how I started it. And it was me being goofy, basically. It was me being, who cares? I'm going to write what I got an A, right?
Nice,
in the English language.
Nice, right.
And so I told him, I said, never be scared of whatever is coming to your head. Just write it. Put whatever you want to. Okay, another question.
Yes.
And this is an important one. For me, specifically being very selfish here, but for a lot of other people. I'm generalizing at the moment. I'm not talking about kids specifically. I'm talking about depression as a whole. I was sitting with an actor friend of mine who said, you're so lucky. You're so happy. He's a very big actor, and it's not like... He said, look at you. You're always smiling. So I ended up telling him a little bit about, my depression and all this, and he refused to believe me.
Really?
And I told him, I said, I don't think I'll ever bring it up again, because I was bringing it up because you were telling me about yourself, and I was, in fact, I didn't even tell him that. I thought of that. I said, I can't believe that this person was being vulnerable in front of me, and I was, trying to, talk about different things. And then I thought, when that person told me that you're such a and so you're so lucky and all of that, and I thought, okay, here, I'll share something. And it was completely shot down. And obviously, I'm sure later on he realized that maybe this is how sometimes. Tell me, and please tell all of us, what is it about what is this thing of, but he looks so happy, but he has everything, but he's smiling, but he's laughing. And does that have a correlation with depression? this whole thing I feel is very murky. So I
Yeah.
want you to get into that just a little bit. Yeah.
So, very interesting question, Myra, and I think we talked a little bit about it when you had come to see me as well. People, and I'm trying to, I'm generally a very private person, but since coming to Pakistan, I'm like on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm just because I want people to see the face of mental health, right?
Right.
My Insta account says looks like a psychiatrist because I want people to see ke pagal, it's like this idea that psychiatrists are old people with, wiry hair and white hair or whatever with, they're not like that. Like, people like me and you, we make mistakes, we do things right,
Absolutely.
we don't have it all right all the time. And then, when faces of depression, like we talked about Kate Spade, we talked about Robin Williams, we talked about, Anthony Bourdain, like all of these people that are doing phenomenally well in their lives, great lives, great things. And then, comes a time when they don't
just crumble.
crumble,
Yeah.
right? So they've all committed suicide. We have all these Indian actors, a couple, there was just one yesterday that I read about who's also committed suicide. So success and happiness, that how we see it, how we perceive it, and how we, manage it in our head is not necessarily correlated with how you're feeling day to day in your day to day life. Happiness also, I feel, is just a very, I think it's overrated as well. I'm like, what is this happiness? Yes, you can have happy moments. I had a really, sucky morning, and now I'm happy, right? And then I know I will go back and there's something awaiting me, which I am not,
Might not, yeah.
I know it's going to
Yeah.
make me like super upset. So this kind of thing that everybody should be happy all the time is, and it's also, all these sociological experiments that I keep doing. So every time I would put a nice quote or something I've written on Facebook, I'll probably get like 10 likes or something. And if I put a picture with my husband or my children, that'd be like 200, 250. Anything that's happy. People see me happy. People see that, my relationship with my husband is lovely. Look, she looks so good with him. Suddenly, everybody likes that. And maybe part of it is that they want to see it, to be able to believe that, yes, you can have it, that, yes, this happiness does exist because it helps them go on in their lives. There's that piece. But I feel that and maybe that the same thing happened with your friend, that it is important for people to believe that Myra is bubbly and happy and wonderfully, content all the time, because if she's not, then everything just crumbles. All that we believe in, all of our ideas about people and about what life brings and what success can bring you and what fame can bring you actually isn't true, right? And those are very difficult questions to answer. So if somebody who's content within themselves and who kind of knows the reality of life and knows that, yeah, you can be successful and happy, or unsuccessful and unhappy, and you can be unsuccessful and happy and unsuccessful and not happy. All of those combinations exist, and it's okay. So I think that piece is hard. It requires a lot of self-reflection, and as a society, we're not a very reflective society.
Yeah.
Right? We don't think, हम इतने ज़्यादा outward focused हैं कि हम within तो देखते ही नहीं है ना कि what is happening with us in our own lives. So I feel that is what is missing. And also, I think one of the things, and I'm again, all power to you to be talking about this and talking about depression and talking about mental illness, because हम तो जब बात करते हैं तो it feels कि आप तो यही बात करेंगे, to hammer everything is a nail kind of a thing. But it's an illness. I'm like, जैसे किसी को डायबिटीज़ होता है, किसी को किडनी डिजीज़ हो जाते हैं, स्टोन्स हो जाते हैं, किसी को एक्जिमा हो जाता है, इसी तरह किसी को डिप्रेशन हो जाता है, किसी को एंजाइटी हो जाती है. It's all happening, this is happening in your pancreas, that's happening in your blood vessels, this is happening in your brain. These are all just organs, right? These are just all organs. So understand that it's just an illness. It's a medical illness, and you fix it like you would fix a medical illness. If it's mild, then you will meditate and you will do mindfulness and change your lifestyle, just like you would do with mild hypertension. And then at some point, अगर उन नमक कम कर दिया, ये कर दिया, उन चीज़ों से फर्क नहीं पड़ा, then you will use medication or a combination of all of these things. So it's just a medical illness. So treat it like that. And I think that for people is also hard to do, because the stigma is just there so much that it's hard for them to accept it.
And I find it, there has come a point where I'm like, how can I not talk about it?
Yeah.
My life as a whole has been affected by it.
Of course.
You know, whether it's me or someone else,
Yeah.
it's majorly affected by it. So
Yeah.
I just, even though, you know, you go through these moments of like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna let it go out, or I'll say something, and then there's all this
Right.
rubbish that'll come my way.
Yeah.
But you know, somewhere at this age, I'm just prepared. Like, okay, yeah, write that damn headline. If
Yeah.
I can can we just start talking about this a little bit more openly? Can we stop making life about like, oh, she's happy, he's sad, he's this, he's that. Dude,
Right.
don't put it in boxes.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I mean, I hope that we can reach.
Yeah, I hope that this
I
can go
hope.
and, we can have, more places where we can talk about this openly. And I'm glad that people have started talking about
Yes.
mental health a lot more now. Pehle bilkul bhi nahi tha. I think we've made it, like, I remember when I first came back from the US as the chair of the department, the first retreat I did with my department was, how do we make psychiatry sexy at AKU and in Pakistan, right? That's all, that was this.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So that's all it was. I'm like, we are going to make it attractive and sexy. And I
I
said,
mean,
we're
you
gonna
are
use
very
the word
attractive and sexy. I don't know if I can say
I'm like,
that.
we
on
are
the-
going to make it sexy because it's important, right?
Yeah.
Enough of this chupna, chupana, karna, like, it's like, and it happens with other illnesses too. So I developed arthritis a few months ago, and my dad was like, beta, don't make it. I know you tend to talk about your things and stuff, but then log fayda uthate hain, karte hain. But I'm like, I need to. If I'm having a hard time because it's my fingers opening a bottle and stuff, I'm going to tell people. And then I'm going to say, hey, kalonji in the morning is working,
Yeah.
but, this
Yeah.
thing is not working, whatever, because...
But that's a good thing,
you know.
That's really,
So-
really actually a good
Yeah,
thing.
so I think it's
Yeah.
important to talk about it. It's, so
Yeah.
all power to you. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't talk
For
about a
being that
lot of
face.
things, but yeah, this I can,
Right.
I have one last question though.
Sure.
Hold on. I sent you this sort of like a
Assessment.
assessment
Yes.
that my mother had gotten done of mine. I think I was 4 years old.
Right.
And it's very interesting. My father brought it out to me one day, and I was like, what is this? What was really, really interesting to me was that everything that was written in it, and obviously, things might have changed, but there are a few things that I feel have remained, One of them being, it said, she uses flight mechanism to sort of avoid not stuff like that. And then there were many other things, and I just wanted to know, like, how does that work, if you were to read this and assess this.
Right.
Yeah.
So a little bit of what I read in this. I mean, it talks about high IQ. It talks about a little bit of how children who may learn better or quicker or faster or are able to perceive, have a sort of higher EQ perception of other people. How they may have a difficult time, or what might their challenges be.
Right.
And there's this really nice book called The Troubles of the Gifted Child.
Okay.
And that's a thing, right? It's an absolute thing, because they perceive more, they absorb more, they are kind of looking at their teachers and their peers, and they're kind of thinking, oh, it's like, that's how they felt when I said this, or I picked up that the teacher kind of folded her arms, is she upset with me, and stuff.
Yes.
And that starts to concern them and bother them, and they start to avoid doing things in their own minds to then mesh and integrate with the other kids, because they don't want to be different, or they don't want to look different, and that might then affect their own self-esteem as well. So it's important to pick those kids up and figure out, because then their loss comes from not being able to be themselves, and it's important for parents and teachers to then say कि इनको किस तरीके से हमने,
what do you do? I mean,
right?
you
So
don't-
again. One of the things I see, take such an existential approach to life. This is who you are, right? And this is your journey, and this is your fate and stuff. And you can work and help your kids with some things, and then you can't help them with some things.
Right.
So again, pick and choose. But if it's like as long as you're able to give them some strong attachments. Right? So, for example, if they really need to be creative and they have a lot of energy around creative energy, smart energy, intellectual energy, is there another pathway where they can manage that, right? Can we put them in music? Can we put them separately? Can we put them in football? Can we put them, horse riding or whatever else maybe where they can excel, that where they're not having to compete with someone, but that's where creative writing, wherever that might be, where they are managing that. Can we find them mentors and coach where they can, talk about some of the things that they feel that they can't talk about their peers, but then also let them enjoy some of the simpler things and have a few attachments with some of their friends, and also they're able to do
So they can
both
sort of
together.
So tell me then, so for a child like that, does it, because it feels like it, that what happens is that there are spurts of this, like success and
Right.
and maybe just go doing well and doing this and doing that, and then suddenly they feel empty at some level. And so
And
so
we're looking at loneliness, we're looking at
Yes.
emptiness, we're looking at, because they're kind of feeling like I can't connect
Yeah,
with
yeah,
everybody else,
yeah.
and I can't. And you can manage that up to a certain extent, which is why I'm saying that, is there a small group of people, even if they're older and stuff, where they can go and they can, and that thing can become their own, that can become their comfort zone, where they can excel and not have to compete with other people.
Right.
But then also finding, and one of the things that our parents don't do as much is like attaching or giving their kids attachment to a lot of other people, because उनको डर लग रहा होता है कि हमसे दूर चले जाएंगे. But I feel like it's so important to have that village. So for example, for me, it was one of my aunts who was a German lady, and that was my way out. I could not talk about poetry and everything that I was writing with my
Right,
parents.
right.
Like they were like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Right.
So, but I would write her letters, I would connect with her, and then she would send me, Shakespeare stuff and everything, and that's
And
where,
that sort of-
and that was my pathway
Right,
where I was
right.
able to do that. So, can we have that
Right.
for those kids, that they can have that little channel where they can do that, and then also then connect with others. But yes, definitely loneliness, emptiness, kind of, because they're not connecting with
I mean, I
everybody
think it's
else. It
exactly
just
the
becomes
same
an issue.
as what a child goes through when. See, the thing is, I feel, because everyone's unique, everyone's
sure.
different,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
somewhere or the other, we all have felt lonely at one point or the other.
Absolutely,
And I think
absolutely.
schools, parents, child psychologists like
Right.
yourself, people like me who can probably bring awareness a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to this topic, I think everyone can sort of help each other to understand each other better. Let there be lesser judgment, I feel, right?
Absolutely.
I
So
mean-
one of the big things, and maybe we can even stop. I don't know how much time, but self-compassion and compassion for others. I'm such a big proponent. I'm like, be kind to yourself. Please be kind to yourself. Don't be too harsh upon yourself. We all make mistakes, and that's what makes us. And we have our quirks, and that's what makes us unique and cool and attractive. If I was a
Absolutely.
perfect person, I'd be like boring, right? So that's nice. That's a good thing. So hold on to that. Be kind to yourself when you make mistakes. It's perfectly okay.
Absolutely.
People will, help you, and I mean, they're not there to judge you all the time. So it's perfect. And then be kind to others. And once you're kind to yourself, you're more likely to be kind to others
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
So those things I think are just so important, and to inculcate in our kids as early as possible.
So very last
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
We'll leave on this
Of
note.
course.
Bullying is a huge issue world over.
Right.
Just a few last thoughts on it, and then we'll close it for parents whose children are have been bullies maybe at some point, and those who are going through it right now, what they can
Right.
do for their children.
Right. So one, I think it's important for people who are bullying or getting bullied is for them to even see what's happening in your own home. Okay.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of, and this we didn't talk about earlier, so it just came to my head that we don't realize how we are talking to people at home. How are we
Yes.
talking to our home help?
Yes.
How are we talking
Absolutely.
to, I was at CAS once giving a talk on bullying, and, one of the students got up and said that, hey, my dad, we were like driving in the car, and then suddenly this motorcycle wale people came, and my dad just, was like, are you going to, and they took out a gun, but my dad took out his own gun and said, yeah, you've come to the wrong car and stuff, and then just scared them away, and this is what we need to be, and this is how strong we need to be. We just need to scare the other bullies, and nobody, that sort of thing. So if that conversation, and unfortunately we have that conversation happening overall in Pakistan.
Unfortunately,
Like,
we
so
are
it's
saying you raped, you get hanged. So
hanged.
you are
Exactly.
violent to violence.
Violence,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So I think we need to understand that we exist in that context.
Right.
So they're hearing this from TV पे जोर जोर से एक दूसरे पे चीख रहे हैं, चिल्ला रहे हैं. It's like what's happening. So
Right.
and then of course again, if my child is getting bullied, hear them out.
Make them aware
Very
of it.
important. Tell them that what is bullying, how do we talk about bullying, why does bullying happen, make them aware about it, let them read about it, let them understand it, that it happens globally. Add one, listen to your child, hear your child. Don't say that, stand
Oh,
up
come
and
on.
stuff.
Oh, come
Koi farak nahi
on.
padta, ya,
Yeah.
koi farak, it's
Yeah.
like be
Be a
okay,
man.
be strong, be a man, whatever. Don't say that. Because it hurts you, it bothers you. It's actually really affecting your
Right.
self-esteem.
Right.
So those are the things that help children.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely,
Honestly,
such a
this is-
pleasure.
I really wanted you on this podcast, and you said yes.
Yeah.
So
This
we're
was-
really, really
This
grateful.
was a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to do this.
I'm glad too, and I hope that
Thank
the
you.
people who are watching and listening
Yep.
can hopefully. I hope that they can
It
learn.
resonates with
It
them a little
resonates
bit.
with them. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.